The Academy of Logic and Light is a peer to peer educational platform that allows students and teachers to practice spirituality without indoctrination. We recognize sovereignty and the right to choose how you worship, who you worship, or if you do not worship, and that it is a personal experience. Please take the information that resonates today and leave what doesn't.
Perfect. Welcome back to the All Podcast, everyone. I am Megan with the Academy of Logic and Light, and we have Julie with us as well. Um, and then we also have our guest, wrong side, Taylor here. Taylor, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know a little bit of what you're up to and why you're here?
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys both for having me. I appreciate the time. So my name's Taylor Cooper. First and foremost, I am a father. I have a couple young girls that are my life. And beyond that, I think the reason I'm here is some of the fun stuff I do in my life. I'm part of a big drumming society, a big drumming group that I created. It's called the Medicine Wheel Drummers, and it's a free community group. We usually meet once, sometimes twice a month to just drum and connect as community. I also created a company called the Conquer You Experience, where we do experiences with kind of that same idea. That was originally created, and then the Medicine Wheel Drummers kind of hatched from that. And then because of that original business, the Conquer You Experience hatched Conquer You Cacao, which is kind of my latest endeavor, brewing up amazing chocolatey drinks with functional mushrooms and sharing it with the world. So it's a little bit about me.
Love that. Love that. How did you get started in this, if I can ask? As much as you feel
Yeah,
comfortable sharing.
yeah, great question. So it started with a divorce, actually. So for a long time, I just was kind of living. I wasn't really super happy. I was kind of trapped in what everyone wanted me to do, people pleasing. And after my divorce, I realized that I just needed to find me and do me and discover who I authentically was. And so I started going out and trying and experimenting with all these different modalities. And it actually started with cold plunging and then visiting different drum circles and then yoga. Well, it actually started with yoga. But then all these other different modalities came in, and I found that each one of them was beneficial for me in different ways. Not a single one of them solved all my issues, but I found bits and pieces of the puzzle that helped me feel peace. And during the process of divorce, it was very challenging. And I didn't know at that time, I didn't know anyone else that was divorced or that was getting divorced. So I just felt super alone. And coming through it, I created my first business, the Conquer You Experience, and that was to help people heal. Our mission is to help us connect deeper to self, soul, or self, source, and soul tribe. So finding who you really are, finding what the connection to divinity is for you, and then finding a soul family. And that's kind of been my mission ever since. And that's kind of where it started. And then the drum circles evolved from that. And they started pretty small. And now we get up to over 100 people in the summer under the full moon.
Wow.
And then from there, like I said before, birthed the cacao part. So, yeah.
Amazing. I
Yeah.
love it. I can relate a lot to what you're saying about also going through a divorce and just like not knowing anyone else that was going through it and just kind of having to do that like inner reflection too of like, okay, who am I without that person, and
Yeah.
discovering who you are and then what it is that you need to grow and be the best person. I really love that. I love what you said about all the pieces of the puzzle coming together too, because there isn't just the healing in the one thing,
Right.
different
Yeah.
aspects. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Thank you. And it is, there's a ton of pieces, and I'm still figuring them out, and I'm still finding new pieces, and I'm still, discovering the deeper parts of myself. And I think that's a lifelong journey, and I'm excited for the journey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that.
I feel like that's so part of, like, learning to live in the moment isn't necessarily, like, forgetting about everything outside of the moment, but it's like learning to appreciate what you do have in that journey, to whatever the destination is going to be. So
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt here for a second.
No.
I loved what you said with living in the moment. That's one thing I try and teach. That's one thing I try and embody is that presence, whether it's, with your kids or with your friends or with your tribe. Just like if you're going to be there and be present. I got, I don't know if you can see it on here or not. I got this tattoo on my wrist. It's Latin. I got Memento Mori and Memento Vivere. It's remember death and remember life. And they kind of, at least to me, they mean the same thing. Remember death, meaning that remember we're all going to die. So be present, love hard. And while you're here, remember to live. Like, don't just go to your boring job every day and like suffer through each moment. Like, have fun, make memories, get out there and live. Don't just do your day to day and then die at an old age, like enjoy your life. So I got that a couple weeks after my father passed away last summer. And it's just a reminder to be present and live life.
I love that. It's
Same.
beautiful.
Yeah.
What took you from going from your own healing experience, obviously then like learning to want to help others, then what brought you to cacao?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I've done and facilitated a lot of kind of different events, and I pride myself on trying to find unique ideas and not kind of doing the same things. So me and my current partner, Brooke, we created an event called Reverb, and it's a sensory ceremony where we bring in different elements to entice all of your five senses. And when we were creating this idea, this event, this was, October of 2022, we were kind of starting to come up with the ideas, and we were trying to come up with something for taste that was healthy, conscious, kind of fit the vibe of what we were trying to create. We didn't want to just do like high sugar cookies or like anything like that. So I had the idea of doing cacao, and I had made it maybe once or twice before that. I had drank in it probably 10 or 15 times, and I'd never really liked it. I enjoyed and appreciated the benefits of it, but I was kind of gagging it down most of the time. And so when we were preparing this idea, I was like, I know I can make it better. Let me just play around with it a little bit. So I created this recipe, which includes cacao, and then I added some cinnamon. So originally, the recipe is now a little bit different, but originally it was cacao and cinnamon, and we just mixed it with water and raw honey and then a little bit of cayenne in it. And it was a huge hit at the event. A lot of people really loved it. Multiple people came up and asked where they could buy it afterwards. And at that point, I was just like, I don't know. Like, I just made this. Like, come to the next event and you can have another cup of it. So since it was such a huge hit, I started to do it at other events. So I started to do it at my drum circles, and then I did it at subsequent reverbs. And every time I got the same response. And finally, I was just like, okay, universe, I hear you. I'll take the leap. So, launched my cacao business under the full moon in April of 2023. And it's been growing and building ever since. The recipe now is a little bit different than the original. I have started to really love and dive into fungi and mushrooms and the benefits of mushrooms. So the current recipe, which is now called the Brain Blend, has the cacao, but it also has lion's mane, which is really good for brain health, for memory, focus. It's got reishi, it's got turkey tail, it's got cordyceps, it's got shiitake mushrooms. So it's got 5 different types of mushrooms. It's got moringa, sea salt, cinnamon. So it's this complex chocolatey drink. And the nice thing about the chocolate is it really masks kind of that earthiness of the mushrooms that a lot of people don't like. So it just kind of tastes like an earthy dark chocolate. And I love it. I love it.
What are some of the benefits of cacao in general?
Ooh, cacao. So cacao alone is one of the most nutrient dense superfoods on the planet. It has over 300 nutrients and minerals. It's got 40 times the antioxidants of blueberries. So a lot of people don't realize just how amazing that actually is. So blueberries, red wine, green tea, a lot of people think of those when they think of high antioxidant foods. And cacao is like 40 times those things. So cacao, keep this in mind too. Some people get cacao confused with cocoa, and they are very, very different. So baking chocolate, whatever you want to call it, is the very highly processed version of cacao. So cacao is the purest form of chocolate, the raw form before it's heated and degraded and whatever you want to do to it, right? So it's the pure form. It's really good for boosting energy. It does contain a little bit of caffeine just due to the dark chocolate, but it's also got theobromine in it, which is a cousin to caffeine. But the theobromine is more of a cleaner energy, which will give you a boost in energy without the jitters or crash like caffeine tends to do. So tons of benefits. It can help with libido. It can help with focus, like so many things. So cacao alone, if you just drink cacao, you're going to be in a really good spot. There's a doctor that's focused a lot of his attention into cacao lately. His name escapes me. It's an Oriental name, Dr. Li Wu, I think. Don't quote me on that, but he's done a lot of studies on cacao and how cacao actually helps your stem cells. They did a study where people who drank 2 cups of cacao a day, I think it was over the course of a month, they doubled their amount of stem cells.
Oh, wow.
And stem cells, they basically look at the parts of your body that are in trouble, that are damaged, that need help, and they go and they fix it. So if we can double our stem cells just by drinking hot chocolate, like it's pretty incredible. And then not to mention, you throw in the lion's mane, which has been shown to help regrow new neural pathways in your brain. You throw in the cordyceps, which gives you natural energy that can help chronic fatigue. You throw in turkey tail, which a lot of studies are showing is an anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory, boosts your immune system. So like all of these crazy, crazy cool things. And I've just kind of like grabbed all of these cool ingredients that I wanted and made them into a drink. So it's pretty cool.
Amazing. That is really cool. Wow, good job.
Yeah.
And I was like, I already knew I liked cacao. I knew like everything they were talking about, but now I'm like, okay, I need it now.
Well, actually, that's what I was drinking right before the show.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
Yeah. That's awesome. I have kind of a shift of gears question, but
Cool.
I'm curious if as you like kind of started coming into the more spiritual path, like was there something specific that caught you and pulled you in to being like, oh, this is where I'm going to find myself? Or like, was there an individual or someone that you were inspired by that like kind of pulled you into this whole drum circle space and like things like that?
Great question. So I think I was inspired by myself for the lack of fulfillment in my life. I had spent so much time just trying to get by and trying to pay the bills and trying to be a dad and trying to be a husband. And that took up all of my time every day. And so I didn't really know who I was. And once I was divorced and separated, and then at the times when my kids were with their mom, I just had all this free time. It was a really hard time, and so I just kind of got out there and started doing fun stuff and finding out what made me happy, what I liked, who I was. And there was a few different mentors and teachers I've had, actually quite a few, probably 8 to 10 people that have played a big role in my life in opening up my mind, opening up my gifts. Before this time, I wasn't really into any music as far as like playing instruments. And now I have like over 25 different musical instruments that I play. So I started really getting into music, starting the drum circles, men's circles. That's a whole kind of other different thing I've been doing, is a lot of men's work, and then cacao. And there's been influences in all those different categories and in different things that have kind of led me to the spot I am now.
Yeah, I love it.
That's
I
amazing.
I also feel very much so pulled by like that search for myself is like where I found all of my spirituality, you know.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you bring up men's circles because you are the first man that we've had on our podcast.
Mhm.
And I feel like sometimes it can be so hard for men to embrace that like spiritual aspect. Like there's kind of this weird space, right? And it's not always the most inviting. And I just curious if you have any advice for men who are like looking for that growth in their life and ways they can go about it or safe spaces that they can, join in.
Yeah. Yeah. Great question. Men's work is tricky. A lot of men that have come to our circles come there in a time of crisis, when their life is in shambles, when it's falling apart, and they have no other way out. And so they come to the men's circle, which is beautiful. We're kind of trying to figure out a way to get preventative care for men before it gets to that spot, because that's pretty far down the road when they're in that much pain that they come. But I've been a facilitator for the Utah Men's Circle for about 2.5 years now. And a lot of men crave masculine connection, whether they know it or not. They really want brotherhood. They want people to stand by them. They want people to have their back. I think that's why sports teams and the military, why men get so close in those organizations, is because they go through the crap together. They suffer together. They fight together. And it's almost like a rite of passage where you can join that brotherhood. And nowadays, if you're not a part of those organizations, or even if you were and you no longer are, that's a huge hole to fill. There's a lot of men who were part of a religion who no longer are, and all of a sudden they lose that brotherhood. Mm-hmm. So the men's circle that we've created, it's for everyone. We don't claim to be any sort of religious affiliation or anything like that. It's just a support circle where men can come, and we talk about hard stuff, and we sing and we dance and we play games and we get serious and we cry and we do all sorts of stuff. And at times it can be uncomfortable, and at times it can be a blast. And all of those help us learn. There's a saying that goes around that you don't grow in your comfort zone. And that's 1,000% true to my experience. Mm-hmm. So like, if there's men out there who are craving connection, who are craving brotherhood, but they don't know where to find it, or they're too nervous to do it, or too scared, or they think it'll be uncomfortable, the truth is it probably will be uncomfortable, and that's okay. We love you. Like, come and be with your brothers. Come and be a part of it, and we'll support you and uplift you and challenge you and support you all along the way.
Yeah, I love that.
I think it's so important right now in the day and age that we're in. It's like the connection between men and women and feminine and masculinity is so interesting right now, like more than ever before. finding that men are struggling in a completely different way than women are struggling, and mostly just like getting in touch with the feelings and having the self-awareness to like find the help that they need or do the internal work. It's really important right now. Really
Yeah.
important.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I
Finding that
think
community.
you're right. And I think the world is starting to shift a little bit and give men a little bit more grace. But for so long, the mentality was just like, you know what, man up. Like, you just got to do it, do the work, get out there, provide, and your feelings don't matter. Like, that narrative has been pushed for so long, and it's just kind of been passed down. So a lot of men really struggle with asking for help, with trying to connect. Um, I don't know if it's instinct or what it is, but so many men feel that competitive, um, feel like it's a competition, when in reality it's not. Like, there's enough for everyone. We can love everyone. We can support everyone. Like, just because you win doesn't mean I lose. Like, we can all win together. And when we have that mentality, that's when it really works. So teaching and encouraging men to be happy, to find success, to support each other. That's kind of what the men's circle is about. It's just bringing men together and supporting each other.
Beautiful. It kind of sounds like you're in like a neutral spiritual like territory or dating spiritually neutral territory. Did you come from, and again, you don't have to answer, but did you come from any like specific religion beforehand, or were you just spiritual?
I grew up LDS. I served a mission, and then it was right about the time of my divorce where I felt extreme judgment. While I was going through my divorce, I moved back in with my parents, started going to their ward, and I just felt like so much judgment, and it was unwarranted, and I felt uncomfortable. And in my thoughts, like, okay, supposedly church is supposed to be a place where you go and feel good, where you go and connect, and you go and, feel a spirit. And I had never felt any of that there. And so I started switching out my church building attendance to nature church. And that's where I felt what I wanted to feel in church. That's where I felt connected to God. That's where I felt connected to myself. That's where I felt peace. And that's what I wanted in religion, and I never got it. So finding what felt good for me was a huge step in that. Did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, I feel like it gets lost a lot on society that men, especially like divorced men in like mid-age ranges, are our highest suicide victims because there aren't spaces that are safe expression for so many people who find themselves kind of in that stage of life. And so I think it's so wonderful that, you were able to grow through that stage and now you're able to kind of provide and help facilitate a space that is helping other people grow through that stage. Because I know I have very close friends who, are struggling trying to find, especially when you couple all of like a relationship ending with a also questioning a religion, like it gets really bleak, like and of an outlook. And so I think that's so great because there is a place for everyone and a path for everyone and a space for everyone. And so I'm so glad that like, we can all partner together to help provide those spaces for each other.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned suicide and men, like, that's a real thing, and it's really scary, and the numbers are just growing, and it's a real problem that most people aren't talking about. June is actually Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, and um, yeah, it's a subject that's very close to my heart. With my with my drum circles, every winter solstice, we do a drum circle for suicide awareness. It's the longest night of the year, and if you can just make it through the night, a lot of times, if you are feeling suicidal tendencies or ideation, if you can just make it through the night, a lot of times those feelings will pass. So we honor that. We bring people together to drum, to raise awareness, to send love out to those people who are suffering in that area. We've had a couple brothers from our group take their lives, and it's just absolutely heartbreaking. We also know multiple men who were planning on it that did not because of our group. So it feels good to know that we are supporting and saving lives. We can't save everyone's life, sadly, but we can try our best to love and to bring awareness and light to it.
Absolutely. What's some advice that you would give for somebody that's maybe experiencing these feelings for the first time, or that maybe it's chronic and they're scared to, maybe they're like introverts or something, but they're scared to try like a new community or something different?
Are you talking in regards to suicide or just communities in general?
To maybe seeking outside help, maybe.
Um, I think what society needs to change. I think we need to kind of get rid of the stigma with people with mental health issues, with suicide. Like, people don't talk about it enough, and it's normal. Like, most people have some sort of thoughts about that at some point in their life. I know I have at multiple points, and I think that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about it, and I think that's why I feel so strongly about helping people, is because I've been there, and it's a terrible spot to be. So if you are currently struggling, if you're currently there, and you want to reach out to community, it can be really tricky. It can be really hard. I think a lot of the people in those spots already feel like a burden, and they don't want to bring a burden onto more people. What I always talk about and preach at the men's circles is like, I would much rather spend an hour on the phone with you than 2 hours at your funeral. Like, please just talk. Like, if you're struggling, you need to be courageous enough to speak. Like, unfortunately, I can't read your mind, but if you can speak to me, I can speak back to you, and we can work through this. So I think just the courage to ask for help, the courage to go to a therapist, the courage to call the suicide hotline, whatever it is, and that can be really hard. But in the end, like, it is on you, and it's up to you to seek out the help. The help's there if you're willing to go for it and ask for it. So that's, I guess,
Absolutely.
some advice.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah, that's perfect.
I think it loops well back into what you said at the beginning of like, you can't grow in that comfortable spot. Like, you have to experience a little bit of discomfort to, get out of that zone that you're in. And so that's great advice of just, you just try to take the one step. Like, someone's going to be there to help catch you.
Yeah. Seriously, sometimes that's all it is. One more step, one more breath, go for a walk, like, change the scenery, call a friend, just something to kind of break up those thoughts. A lot of times we get stuck in a loop, like a loop pattern of thoughts, and if we don't do something different, the recording just plays over and over and over. So we got to break that cycle.
I can express enough for, at least for me, mostly because my Mercury isn't an air sign. Always takes it back to astrology. My Mercury is an air sign. It's like proven that you have to speak your feelings to like process them, for me at least, and all air signs. So it's also important to realize that if you don't speak those things, they stay inside of your body and they literally make you sick, whether it's mentally or physically in some sort of way. Those feelings are coming out, and
Yeah.
you are much better saying it out loud than even you record a voice memo to yourself and delete it. Like, get it out.
Yeah.
Scream in your car is my favorite.
Yeah, totally. And one thing that I've really enjoyed about the men's circles is we create a safe space to where men can use that voice, where they can talk about how mad or sad or scared they are and not have to worry about judgments of family members. You know, they can have a safe space to express anger. Our society has given anger a really bad rap, when in reality, anger is just an emotion, just like all of our other ones. Where it gets the bad name is from the way people act out generally when they're feeling anger. But if it's expressed in a safe space in a healthy way, it can actually be transformative. Um, and that's some of the exercises that we do in the men's circle is like, hey, use this technique, like scream into this pillow or like just shake it out, whatever, right? But expressing it in a healthy way is so important. And not taking those emotions out on people they don't belong to. When we hold them all in, we find that we're just like the first thought that comes to mind is those old-fashioned cartoons where like the water heater gets like so clogged up and like all the screws start popping out and then like the water starts squirting out, and it's like that's how anger can be. Like if you just keep it bottled up, the pressure just keeps growing until it explodes. And then next thing you know, you're yelling at people that don't deserve it. You know, you're spilling your crap on other people that don't deserve it. So yeah, the men's circle, we want to create that openness, that safety, so that you can let that stuff out and go back to the people you love with less weight on your shoulders.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I feel like that's what a lot of people in this space are trying to do. And I feel like there are some co-ed spaces that are working on it, but I feel like for myself, and it's probably because I'm also looking from a woman's perspective, I find so many women's circles that allow for that. So I'm so happy that, you know, there is the inverse of like a space where the masculine can go and men can go and also experience that. So that's so cool.
Yeah.
And I just, a little bit of a shift, but so your drumming circles that you've been doing, those are co-ed, right? Or are they mostly men as well? Okay.
Yeah, totally co-ed, family friendly. We want to keep everyone involved.
That's awesome. I love it. And you said, do you do like something around all of the solstices, like around both the summer and winter solstice, or do you just do moons? Like how often are you doing that drumming circle, and are there specific events?
Yeah, good questions. In the past, I was doing 2 a month, and I was doing one in Utah County and one in Salt Lake County. As life has got busier and cacao has started to get busier, I've kind of narrowed it down, and we're doing them generally once a month. The summer ones are my favorite because we meet up Provo Canyon. There's this really beautiful medicine wheel that we built in the mountains, and we have a big fire, we have a potluck, and we do it really as close as we can to the full moon. We'll do it 4 or 5 months of the summer, and it's just a blast. We have anywhere from 80 to 130 people up there, and all walks of life. We've got kids, we've got dogs, we've got adults, we've got elderly, we've got, everything. And it's so cool because there's lessons to learn from everyone, from the kid dancing around the fire to, the old man in the corner just like observing and listening. So it's important to me that we create a safe space there as well for everyone. I don't want single moms to come up with their kids and feel uncomfortable. I want everyone to be included and to feel safe. So during the summer, we meet up there. During the winter, we'll meet every month or two, usually indoors. I'm not really a fan of it as much indoors. It's just different. But that kind of varies the location. We kind of bounce around from place to place in the winter months.
You're like us.
Yeah.
We do the same.
Yeah. That's so cool. I love it. Oh, so are those like paid for events, your drum circles, or is it just kind of an open event for anyone to attend? How does that work?
The drum circles, they're all donation based.
Okay.
So anyone that wants to come, if you can't pay for anything, then you don't have to. If you have some money to give and you're willing to donate, then that's awesome. It's a ton of work for me to do it because I haul up tables up the mountain. I bring up all these drums. I usually bring up like 10 drums and pass them out so people can have drums. I'll bring cacao up there. So like it's a whole day's worth of work for me generally. So like if you can donate, it's super appreciated, but I do not ever want people to not come because they can't donate. And maybe a donation is like, hey, I'm going to come early and help you set up. Like that is awesome. Or I'm going to bring firewood. Like it doesn't have to be money. It can be energetic. It can be a gift. I've had people bring me like jam and honey or like crystals, and like all of that's cool. Like there is some sort of energetic exchange there, which feels empowering for both parties. So it's a reciprocal give and take, which I think is important.
Yeah. That's so cool. That's very similar to
that's
what
kind
we
of how
do.
we believe.
Yeah. Is there a specific name that you do those under, like a business name, just so now that we've talked about it, people can find where to get involved with
Yeah,
that?
totally. So I'm on Facebook and Instagram under the Medicine Wheel Drummers. So the medicine wheel is an ancient symbol. A lot of Native American cultures use it. It has tons of symbolism, tons of meaning. And up at the spot where we drum, we built a medicine wheel there about 4 years ago. And it's just this crazy, awesome, sacred portal area. So we drum. Initially, when we started drumming up there, we would drum right next to it. And then our group got so large that we had to move up the hill a little bit. So now we do it just up the hill from it, but we still give people time to go down and kind of have their moment in that space. So yeah, Medicine Wheel Drummers on Facebook and Instagram. We do drum circles. I also had consistent requests like asking where people could get drums. And so I started doing drum making workshops. So we'll do a ceremonial style drum making workshop, usually started off with ceremonial cacao, do the drum making workshop. I've kind of been doing this 50-50 now. I have a friend and we've been doing a sweat lodge ceremony along with the drum making ceremony, which has been very, very cool and very powerful. So we've been doing those, kind of switching off between that as well.
Very cool.
Yeah, all of that sounds amazing. I love it.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that so much. We need it so bad.
Yes.
I was gonna ask, I know it's about keeping you wanting to keep your spaces like safe for everyone. Is there anything that you do physically, energetically that helps you know that it's a safe space?
It's a great question. Yes, there is. So generally before my events, I will do smudging, usually with Palo Santo. I'll do that around the area. And then before all of my drum making workshops, before all of my drum circles, we always open up sacred space. which is, I believe it's also a Native American tradition, and it varies depending on where you hear about it. The Peruvian people have a different way of doing it than the North American people, but it's a way of honoring all the directions and the symbolism between them. So we take a moment and we honor the east, the place of the rising sun, the west, the east, the south, the west, the north, and then we go down and we honor the earth and we put our hands on the earth. Then we stand up and we honor the sky, what is above us, and then we take a moment and we honor what is within us. So each ceremony we begin with creating that bubble of safety, that sacred container, and that just kind of sets the tone for the event, for the ceremonies.
Beautiful. I heard that cacao is a heart opener, correct?
Yes.
Nice. That's such a nice way to like include that into ceremony. I really love that.
Yeah, so it's so cool because the cacao, it goes with everything I do. So whether it's a men's circle or whether it's a drum circle or whether it's yoga or breath work or like a retreat, like it's the perfect complement to whatever you're doing. It boosts creativity. It opens up your blood vessels. Blood moves through your body more. You can feel your feelings. You can be more present. And it's just like the perfect complement to whatever you're doing. And you combine that with a drum circle and you get everyone feeling their feelings. It's pretty awesome. It's great.
Great combo.
Yeah. Yes. So cool. So you talked about Reverb as like an all senses experience. Is that something that you still are doing? Are those Reverb? I don't know what it was. Like,
I know where
events.
you're going.
Yeah, experiences. What is it?
Great. So the last one we did was in December, and then there was some changes in jobs and cacao taking off. So we haven't done one for 6 months, but we do plan on continuing to do them. Cool. Just when our schedules get less hectic. But it's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Can you describe a little bit like how the five senses like aspects work, if you want to, like?
Yeah,
people can imagine.
Yeah. So are either of you guys familiar with the clubhouse in downtown Salt Lake?
I have not gotten the chance to go, but
okay,
I appreciate what they're doing.
Okay, so it's an older building, tall ceilings, big room. So we've done them in there a few times. We've also done them in like a wedding reception center up Provo Canyon. But we dim the lights and then we turn on visual effects on the ceilings. So you have like, it's almost like the Northern Lights going all over the ceiling. And then we start off with, I'm trying to remember now. It's been so long since I've done one. we do cacao to start. That opens up the heart. That kind of sets the mood, the tone. And then when we go in, we start with breath work, and we do 2 different types of breath work. And during the second part of the breath work, it's more of a holotropic, more like intense breathing. We will bring in some of the more percussion instruments, and we'll start to play drums to help move and shift energy. We'll bring in cymbals, we'll bring in gongs, like more of the disruptive frequencies, the vibrations. And that really helps people sometimes move that stagnant energy and release some things that they've been holding in. And then after the breath work is done, then we transition from the crazy vibrations to more of the soothing. So we'll go into crystal bowls, into chimes, into flutes. And we usually have myself, my partner Brooke, and then we'll have usually 3 other facilitators doing sound and different instruments and energy work and Reiki and different things. And then we'll guide them through a meditation near the end. and then we'll do some ho'oponopono, which is a Hawaiian healing practice of love and forgiveness. And then we'll kind of wrap things up with an integration session. We also will do smudging throughout. So as people come in, everyone is smudged with sage as they come in. And then throughout, as we're doing the sound, we'll bring Palo Santo through, kind of keep the room clear of energy. And so there's the cacao. You've got the different smudging things for the smell. You've got the visual effects on the ceilings. You've got the safe touch on your shoulders or your forehead with energy work. So there's a whole bunch of kind of different things. And what we've done is we want people, whether they've been to one or they've been to multiple, we want to make them different each time so that it's fun and fresh. So we always switch out some of our facilitators. So we rotate through different people in the community, through different healers, through different sound specialists, so that each one has its own unique flair, so that it's unique and fun and different if you come to every single one. So
Cool.
Very cool.
Very
I love
cool.
it. Yeah.
I feel like you're about to ask a question, then I want to ask a question, and then I'm like, don't want to interrupt.
You go.
I was going to take it back to Cal a minute. Where is it from?
I'm sorry, say that again. You were breaking up.
Oh, sorry. For the cacao, are you sourcing it from somewhere specific, or is it always different, or where does it come from?
Great question. So it's Ecuadorian cacao. So it comes from Ecuador.
Nice. I love Ecuador.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah,
Nice.
One of my good friends, when I first started getting into cacao, I used to do a lot of retreats with him, and then he actually moved to Ecuador, so I don't do retreats with him anymore. But when he was growing up, he spent 10 years living in the jungles of Ecuador, growing his own cacao, like doing all this crazy stuff in the jungle. He was a tour guide for like foreign tourists, and he would take them into the jungle. He did that for 10 years, and then he moved up here and worked in wilderness therapy for a long time. And I met him, and we started to work together and do retreats and hikes and sweat lodges and all these different things. And I invited someone down to help facilitate a cacao ceremony at one of them. And he tried the cacao at that one, and he didn't really say anything. And then I brought my cacao down months and months later, probably over a year later, and was like, hey, this is my cacao. Like, I'd love for you to try it. I know you kind of have had this before. And he tried it, and he's like, that is good cacao. That's been done right. Because there's a lot that goes into the proper taste of cacao. There's a fermentation process that takes place. And if it's not done enough, you get a different flavor than if it's fermented properly. So he was like, that first one that you had me try a while back, it wasn't quite fermented properly, but this one is really good. So it felt awesome to get like the seal of approval from a guy that like knew his stuff, And now
Really
he
cool.
actually moved back down to Ecuador. So he's living in Ecuador, and I'm hoping to actually have him. So he moved down there to do, I don't think this is the right word for it, but some sort of new farming system to teach the natives a new type of farming system.
Wow.
And I'm going to butcher if I try and explain it, so I'm not going to, but it's a way to, like a crop rotation with animals. So the people there can raise animals and they can raise crops at the same time. And it's a very efficient way for them to provide for their families. They can grow enough food to sell it. They can grow enough food to eat it. And it's just a really cool program. So I'm hoping in the near future to be able to work with him and to work with his communities down there with the natives for them to grow this cacao for me. So I'm more in touch one-on-one with these really small personal communities.
Yeah.
Very
Oh,
cool.
that's cool. Yeah.
I almost bought a retreat center in Ecuador. It's such good
Oh,
vibes.
really? Ah,
Yeah.
cool. Cool. I wish you
Yeah.
would have.
I know, me too. I was like, COVID prices were like so good. And I was like, oh, I'm so scared. I just didn't have enough guts to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
So I'm curious if you have any advice for someone who like wants to try cacao, but either hasn't done it or hasn't ever like prepared it for themselves. Do you have any advice for kind of the ritual aspect of it as well as, just how to do that?
Yeah. So cacao is, I like to relate it to coffee in the sense that like some people like black coffee, some people like it with a lot of cream and sugar and some salted caramel, you know? And with cacao, you got to kind of play with it a little bit to see how you like it. Some people like it really bitter, some people like it more sweet. Some people will put coffee creamer in it. With my cacao, I've made it really simple. And whenever I make it, I just mix it with water, with hot water, and then put in some honey. So it's really
Mhm.
simple, really easy. All of the cacao comes in a powder form, so that you don't have to like chop a brick up. I've actually taken the bricks themselves and cold milled them, so that you don't have to chop them up. So I've milled it with the cacao paste and the cacao powder. I've mixed them together, mixed them with the mushrooms. So the process is super simple. If you want to mix it in milk or almond milk, you can mix it in basically any warm or hot liquid, and then just add sweetener to taste, or add creamer to taste, or however you want to do it. But I would recommend playing around with a little bit, and don't give your first initial impression of it. Don't have that be like a permanent memory because you got to kind of figure it out, you know? So,
Yeah, very cool.
yeah.
And as far
Cacao.
as like real goes, yeah.
So, cacao done right is amazing. Um, if it's not quite done right, it can taste like mud and be like super bitter and chunky. So, it does depend on how it's prepared, and the
Mhm.
quality and the source. So there's kind of a lot that goes into it. Um, Going back to the ritual that you mentioned, um, a slogan that I have adapted for my company is a ceremony in every sip. Um, with cacao, I've done it in all the ways. I've done it where I've taken 30 minutes to an hour to like prepare it and sit with it and meditate with it, hold it to my heart, set an intention, smell it, drink it, savor it, feel its presence on my palate. Like I've done all of that, and that's amazing. And on a normal day, I don't have an hour to dedicate to a cacao ceremony like that. So for those people who have a busier schedule, I'll make it and then I'll hold it and I'll just be like, okay, I love myself. Or like, I'm going to set an intention for forgiveness or for resiliency or for, just take 10 seconds and hold it next to your heart before you do it. It doesn't have to be this huge, elaborate thing. It can be, but when you don't have the time, you don't have the time. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Modern rituals, I like it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Well,
people really underestimate the power of intention too with anything. Like I always say, I've said it millions of times, but anything done with intention is magic. That intention is a real big game changer for literally everything you do in your day, from the
To-
mundane to the more magical.
Totally. Yep, I agree with you.
yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's there's so many people who's like coffee, like is their morning ritual, right? Like
Mhm.
the getting it, the stirring it, all of the aspects is just part of their routine. And I guess I just hate the word routine, and I'm like, let's just call everything a ritual. Make it a little more magic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I love that. Do you suggest, like, because you said you just drink some and it's a little bit late at night, would you say that it ever has a large effect on being able to sleep? Or have you personally noticed anything like that or heard of it affecting people that way?
Yeah. So it really depends on the person. If you are really sensitive to caffeine, it might have some effect on you trying to sleep. The interesting thing is in the ingredients. So cacao itself, it's got theobromine to help give you energy. It also has tryptophan, which if you're familiar with your Thanksgiving turkey, that's the ingredient that makes you want to go to sleep after you eat. So it relaxes you. It also has reishi mushrooms, which is a good de-stressor. It relaxes the body. It actually promotes a more restful sleep. So it's got this interesting combination of adaptogens that can kind of adapt to what you are wanting and what your body is needing. So if you want to, stay up late and finish a work assignment or something, which I've done, it usually is really good at that. But if you're also like just want to go to bed, it's also has helped me with that. There's only been one, maybe two times where I took it pretty late at night and I laid down and I was like, oh man, like I can't sleep right now. But it's not very often. I mean, I just drank this an hour ago
Yeah.
and I feel the clarity. I feel happy to be here. And that's one of the other things in here too. The cacao actually releases endorphins. Serotonin, different things that it's the feel good chemical, and dopamine, I think is what it's called. It's the bliss molecule. So like it just puts you in like this good flow state, this good mood. And I'll tell you what, like if I wanted to go lay down in an hour, I would sleep just fine. I wouldn't have any issue with it. So the adaptogenic properties of it are very cool, where it usually will give you the energy or give you the rest.
Cool.
Hmm.
Very cool.
Very
Well,
cool.
and that's what, when you talk about it being so restorative, it just makes me think of, so I read tarot, and
Mm.
after reading tarot, like I just want like a bite of a chocolate bar so bad because it is so like soothing in different ways. And anyway, what you're just telling me is that I need to try cacao to just get me centered through that. But like it uh it very much so, like, at least like with chocolate, I definitely it has this like restorative property. So I'm sure cacao and like all of the nature and the stuff that you have in your blend is probably just exactly what I need.
Yeah, it's pretty good stuff. I've actually experimented with making chocolates out of it,
Oh, cool.
and I was
Ooh.
actually a few weeks ago I was on Fox 13 News about my chocolates, the cacao chocolates, and it's pretty awesome because it's a chocolate, but you have the raw cacao, you have the mushrooms, you have all of that stuff in it. So it's just like this crazy good superfood, delicious, yummy chocolate, and it's good for you. So
Wow.
if you're craving chocolate, like I got a good recipe I can share with you.
Yes, I'm gonna have to get that because I'm like, I just need it. It like just centers things, especially when I'm like reading between multiple clients, that I'm like, I just need a quick little grounding, like opening, cleansing.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, where
Yeah.
can people find you to buy it?
So you can go to my website. It's Conquer You Cacao. So that's ConquerYouCacao.com. And you can order it online. I can ship it to you anywhere in the US. If you're local to Utah, I have a handful of locations in Davis, Salt Lake, and Utah County, where you can go in and just grab a bag at a store.
Very
Um, And I guess maybe just reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram if you want to know where those locations are, because I don't want to take 10 minutes explaining where they all are. But yeah. 2 final thoughts. Get comfortable being uncomfortable, or get comfortable doing uncomfortable things, and enjoy the journey. Like, it's always going to be hard. There's always going to be good days and hard days. And I try and eliminate the word bad from my vocabulary, because I don't believe there's bad days or bad experiences. I think there's hard experiences and challenging days, but that doesn't mean they're bad. So yeah, get uncomfortable, learn, grow. That's how we evolve. My divorce taught me that, and then multiple other crazy, difficult experiences have taught me that since then. And then don't let those hard things ruin your day or ruin your month or ruin your life. Like, live life and find the good.
Even micro joys.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the podcast on. Thank you. This was so beautiful.
Yeah.
I
Thank you
love
so
it.
much for sharing and being vulnerable with us.
You're doing great stuff for the community. Like,
Love to
it
see
sounds
it.
like we're very much so like on similar paths of what we're trying to create. So I'm so glad that we, have cross paths and we get to help create
Yeah.
it together, and it's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. We need
Yeah,
it.
I am too. I appreciate that. Yeah, we're all in this together.